What the city is talking about. This is Montreal Now on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
We want to support police officers. It's an important article concerning the work that they're doing each day. So for us and for me, 636, it's an important point for the job that the police officers are doing in a day-to-day basis. There's maybe one time when we were saying some racism concerning random stop, but for now, this article 636 for me, it's very, very important for the police officer because it's an article important in terms of each day patrol, each day work that they're doing concerning their job.
So that's Quebec Public Security Minister François Bonnardel talking about the government's decision to appeal a Quebec Superior Court ruling all the way to the Supreme Court, the one that concerns random police stops, checks, if you will. James Mennie of the Montreal Gazette on the line. Jim, what do you make of this?
Well, I have to tell you, first of all, with all due respect to Mr. Bonnardel, there was more than one incident. There was at least one incident that led to its being challenged in Quebec Superior Court. But my God, I'm looking back on the years that I've been covering cases like this. I could throw a stick and hit maybe a dozen of them. And the rationale, even though the judge in the first hearing, the judge in Superior Court back in 2022, essentially said it is embarrassingly clear how this is being used for racial profiling. There's absolutely no doubt we are awash in examples of how police have used this power. The people like Bonnardel, the powers that be, and police themselves say, no, we need this power because it allows us to perhaps nail potential drunk drivers who, if we don't have a roadblock going and we just happen to see someone driving, maybe erratically, maybe not, we're not sure. But we're concerned enough to be able to pull them over without apparent just cause. That'll be worth it. Saving lives will be worth it. I would respectfully submit, though, Aaron, that there's another element here. We may hear, I'm not going to be arguing the case for the province, but I also suspect they may argue before the Supremes that the entire complexion of crime in Quebec has changed. That, in fact, Quebec police forces, and indeed, like many police forces across the country, are now dealing with what's very seriously referred to as disorganized crime, i.e., we don't even know who these guys are. They came out of nowhere. There are criminal networks going on that we're just barely hearing about. We haven't been able to infiltrate. We don't even know whose wires to tap. And this will allow us that much. It'll be an extra tool in the box to allow us, if we think, to sort of short-circuit any ventures by any of these gangs who have proven themselves to be extremely bloody-minded, who have proven themselves to be a real threat to the public safety. And we need this. And to take this away would be an egregious reduction in the powers that we have. I think, I'm not entirely sure the Supremes will give it the toss just based on, no, because it's going to lead to racial profiling. I think if they can sort of buttress their argument by saying, like any other police procedure, police have extraordinary powers. They could abuse any of those powers. In most cases, they don't. The ones we hear about, i.e., the racial profiling, the driving while black, walking while black, existing while black. These are very clear cases. But on the other hand, there may be a little more to put on the other side of the scales this time going in, simply because, as I say, the situation in Quebec has changed. The idea of ensuring the public's health and safety has changed. And I'm pretty sure that will be a big part of the arguments we're going to be hearing once the Supremes, I'm presuming they will hear this, once the Supremes hear this particular case.
I should point out, by the way, to your point, this is not going to change, those stops that you have, at Christmas, whatever, looking.
No.
That stays, that's not affected by this at all.
No, in fact, all you have to do, and this is, we do it, you guys do it over at CJAD. They will say, we're setting up roadblocks. And I think they had one last week. Right. All our police forces will be setting up roadblocks. We'll be looking for drunk drivers. So in other words, it's not entrapment. They're out there. You shouldn't be drinking and driving anyway, so you don't really have much of, you surprised me. I didn't know I wouldn't have drunk. No, but that's how it works. So that is not going to affect it at all. It's the 3 a.m., you're driving down the road, and the car behind you all of a sudden springs some turret lights and a siren and tells you to pull over. That's what they're talking about.
By the way, and I wasn't aware. I mean, I hadn't been paying attention, I guess. I remember, Jim, when this decision first came down from Superior Court, we were kind of musing that, well, who knows, maybe the government won't appeal. And of course, turns out they will. But in the interim, this has continued and it will continue until it does get to the Supreme Court. This rule remains in effect for them.
Oh, absolutely. It remains in effect even after the Court of Appeal pushed back on Quebec's original appeal of the Superior Court ruling. It pointed out, I think it gave 90 days for the existing article to remain in effect and for the government to create a new, as far as the courts are concerned, legal article covering that particular area of policing. They're saying, no, we can't, and we need this power. But yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. They can do it. Will we be hearing about more cases of driving while black? Probably. But as I say, there may be an argument the police will make is that there is a greater issue here, which is the public safety. And without this, we are compromising it in the current situation we have.
All right. There's another story coming out of Quebec today. This one concerns, thankfully, an Access to Information Act where we find out the government's very much aware of lives being saved if we were to lower the blood alcohol limit and apparently ignoring it. Is that fair?
Well, yeah, exactly. And the thing is, the Liberals are not exactly going out on a limb here. They are pointing at François Bonnardel, the public security minister, who's also responsible for the Sûreté du Québec, saying that if people are dying, it's on your watch. It's your responsibility. We've already heard from 4 Quebec coroners, one of whom said the idea of lowering the blood alcohol limit to 0.05 should be considered. The other 3 said, no, don't consider it. Do it. The proof is there. We've heard from the Quebec Automobile Insurance Board, which is essentially a branch of Transport Quebec. Although we can't find out what's in, they're not letting us see what's in their conclusion. Although they too have turned around and said if you turn around and drop it to 0.05, you'll have fewer deaths on the roads. And now the Presse Canadienne seems to have managed to get their hands on an internal document or an internal study by the Sûreté du Québec, which is responsible for basically patrolling Quebec highways, saying, yeah, if you drop it to 0.05, you'll have anywhere from 4 to 10 fewer deaths, 4 of those deaths being on our highways that we patrol, the rest being on municipalities and big cities. And yet, the government does not want to know, does not want to discuss this. And in fact, the recommendations of the SQ report have been redacted, the versions that were handed over to the Presse Canadienne. And once again, I mean, we've had this conversation. Why is it happening? Is it because in the rest of Quebec, it's not like in the urban centers? Right. You've got further to go. You've got further to drive. Is that why people are pushing back? The fact is, though, I'm very sorry. I don't think there is any argument around it, Aaron. I think that the proof is there. And we are the only provincial jurisdiction in the country that continues to just fall back on the criminal 0.08, the federal criminal 0.08 limit, whereas every other province has an administrative level of 0.08, i.e., they'll take your keys, they'll impound your car. In other words, they'll nip it in the bud. You won't get a criminal record. However, your car and you will be taken off the road then and there.
You mean at 0.05 for the rest of the country?
Yeah, the rest of the country. Quebec is the only jurisdiction where the 0.08 limit is still in effect. Quebec and, of course, the Yukon Territory.
Yeah. Isn't it something to consider that they can take something like this and make it a political issue? I mean, it's hard to believe, but you can't ignore the fact when the SQ weighs in and says, yes, this would save lives, and the government still chooses to say and do nothing, you kind of have to sit here and shake your head and wonder what the hell's going on.
Well, you're going to have to ask yourself how long it's going to be. I mean, they're already saying, Bernardel, Monsieur Bernardel, this is on your shoulders. In other words, if somebody dies, It's not like you didn't know. If somebody dies, this could be one of the 4 to 10 deaths that could have been prevented. Now, who are you listening to, Monsieur Bernardel? And you and I have speculated. Is it, restaurant owners? Is there a lobby that is turning around to the government saying, no, if you let our customers drink less, it's going to kill us. We never recover from. I can't buy into that. I'm very sorry. And I know it may seem, over the top. I drive. I also drink. here's the thing: I never do both at the same time,
Right.
and that's just me. But I know there are people who won't do that. So if there is that extra menace hanging over you, that you won't get a criminal record, but man, it's going to be a really tough weekend if you get nailed at .05. If that stops you from having that extra drink, I'm sorry, I'm in favor of it.
All right. I want to get to the last thing, which is what I started the show with today. We talked about this originally, Jim, I guess on Monday when we found out about the Trudeau-Trump dinner, this idea of a 51st state. And I thought I'd have some fun with this today because when I first brought it up, we actually had a couple of callers who were like, oh, no, I'm ready. Let's go. It'd be great. We can be part of the U.S. So I have a little list of pros and cons. Don't know if you heard this earlier on, but I would ask you, take Donald Trump any way you like, joke, not a joke, doesn't matter. But if this was to happen, and by the way, in looking at this, Jim, do you remember we had something called Party 51 here in Quebec, right? And this was their whole idea. They said, hey, we should become Quebec, should become the 51st state. So this is not the first time the idea is being broached, so never at this level before. What do you think? I mean, is this just complete nonsense?
Well, I mean, with Trump, who knows? I mean, Trump is just stream of consciousness. I know that, history shows us the Americans have had their eye on us, our territory, and our resources for about 200 years. They have realized it's easier to buy it than shoot for it. But the fact is, I don't think even your average American looks at this country as being anything more than a source of cheap water, cheap energy, cheap resources, that would really, really make their lives easier. That our water in Canada could be used to make sure that LA in the middle of the desert remains green, that this artificially created American Southwest remains flourishing, even though they're facing droughts every other year. It's the easy way to go. But honestly, I saw a poll that actually came out this week, and I think it's on the money. I think no matter what our differences in Canada politically, raise the idea of becoming American, all of a sudden everybody links arms and does not want to know about that at all.
Except for some texters who suggest, no, that's not the case. All
right.
You
know what they think being part of being part of the U.S. is like shopping in Plattsburgh. No, it isn't. So shut up.
And that's where we'll leave it. James Mennie, the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.
Adam.